So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video. Today we'll be learning about the Jupyter Notebook, and if you guys are really new to Jupyter Notebook, well, you have clicked on the right video. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So right now you have to know there are two things. Firstly, the Jupyter Notebook shows code in real time. Secondly, you can pretty much show the real-time depiction of a code. For example, any output which cannot be shown by an interpreter in some other IDE, it can pretty much be shown in this one. So now, the first thing you have to do is you have to fire up the Jupyter Notebook, and there are practically two ways to fire it up. So the first way would be using your Anaconda Navigator. So I'm going to just type Anaconda Navigator and I'm going to click enter. So basically you will be redirected to your Anaconda Navigator, and in your Anaconda Navigator you will have something known as Jupyter Notebook. So all you have to do is click on the Jupyter Notebook, launch it. Well, this is one way of doing it. It is going to end up the same, having the IPython based Jupyter Notebook. The next way, if you guys have installed this in your system as a separate package, well, then all you have to do is go to your command prompt, type command prompt in your search button, and then you have to click on the administrator mode. So run as administrator, yes. And now all you should do is, for me, I have all the Python nodes in this specific area. So this is there in the desktop. So by default, if your Windows if you open up command prompt, there would be two chances. Either you would land up in this directory. So if you know, the C drive has users, it also has something known as the Windows, and you have system32. If I want to show you the system32, so basically when you land up here, you will have system32. So basically it opens up in this directory. So if you guys don't know, the desktop of Windows, it is always located in the C drive in users. So for example, if you take down, let me just show you guys. So just click on users, click on who you are tactically, because every user name is stored. So you have two, you have public as well as you have your name. So just get inside your name, and this is actually my dad's name, so it's showing his name here. And inside here you will have an icon known as desktop. So basically this thing is a reflection of whatever you do. So anything you drag into the desktop is pretty much going to your C drive, users, your username, and then the desktop. So for me, it has opened up in the system32, but I think I have to re-navigate it to my desktop. So just hold on for a moment. I'll just move this to the directory where it should be. So as you can see, we are back in a directory now. It is the desktop. So practically if I type dir here, I can see all of my apps and everything that's available. All the folders and the apps are visible. So now all I have to do is cd into my Jupyter Notebook where I have everything. So I'll just type cd space Jupyter and press tab for it to autocomplete. So the moment I type that, I'm in my Jupyter Notebook, and you just check if I'm in my Jupyter Notebook. I can pretty much see that I have it here. This, if I could increase the size of this, yes. So this is my directory, and now all I have to do is type JUPYTER notebook. So I'm not gonna spell the name. Yeah. So the moment I type this and I click on enter, it is going to load the Jupyter Notebook for us. So if you can see, we have fired up the Jupyter Notebook in our specified directory where it should be. So if you want, let me just give you a short comparison of where it is. This is the directory, and this is what's there in my directory that I want to move. So this is my directory, and you can see this is an exact reflection of the directory that's on the right side. And that is a good thing. I mean, we have actually fired this thing up. So make sure you're not closing the command prompt, because if you do that, you will end up killing the server which the Jupyter Notebook is running on. So you are not supposed to basically close the command line, otherwise it will end up killing your Jupyter Notebook. So just minimize your command prompt, and now you will be in your Jupyter Notebook. So now all you have to do is click on new, and we will create a new Python 3 Jupyter Notebook. So by default, the Jupyter Notebook has the heading of untitled one. So let's rename this, So we will rename this to my tutorial. So let me just type that down. And therefore it is renamed. So guys, we have changed the name of our notebook, and now we'll be learning how to use the shortcuts. So as we all know, let me just write down a short Python code so that you guys can know what is happening. So guys, as we have renamed the title, and now I'm going to type a Python code so that we can see all the changes that are being reflected. So I'm just going to write down a string, and you all know string. I'm not using this as a a predefined variable. It is just an assignment to the variable. So at the moment I just to basically now run this, you have to know one thing is you can run this in 3 different ways. First way would be running this cell and then entering a new cell. So if I press shift and enter, it is going to run this cell as well as create a new cell. This is one way of doing it. And now if I try to type X and if I want the output of it, and if I press again and shift and enter, so it is going to show you that it's a string. This is one way of doing it. Another way would be basically running a single instance. So let me just delete this current cell. So for us to know how to delete this, you can pretty much go to your edit button and delete the cell, or you could use shortcuts to it. So for example, if you click here, you see the green color. So this is basically the edit mode, and if you will also find a pencil on the top right, which basically tells that this is the edit mode. And if you press escape, now you have a blue color here, and that edit mode is gone. So basically there are 2 modes in the Jupyter Notebook. The first one is your edit mode, which is green in color and it has a pencil spot on the top after trusted. The next one is your command mode. So the command mode basically has a blue color and you don't have a pencil up there. So basically in command mode you can use shortcuts. Okay, for me to delete the cell, I have to just double tap the button D. So the moment I just double tap the key D twice, we delete it. And if you want, we can even delete the previous one, and we can also delete the same. So now let me just type the output here itself so you guys know what output. So now practically if I press Control and enter, this will run the specific cell only. It will not create a new cell. So this is Control and enter, and you can see it basically gives you an output of the present cell and not the cell below. So this is the second command. So first, if you want to execute this and create a new cell, you have to use shift and enter. And if you want to just execute this specific cell, you have to use control and enter. So the next command would be entering a cell below. So how do you enter a cell below and above it? So how do we enter? You could pretty much go to your edit button and you can add cell, but we have to do it the shortcut way. So you have to basically go to the command view. So you see that this is blue in color. It means that we are already in the command view. So right now you have to just press the key A, and this will create the cell above it. And if you press B, so if, for example, let me go down and press B, it will create a cell below it. So in command mode, you can press A on B, because as you all know, A comes first. So basically it is going to put it above the current cell, and as B comes after in the alphabetical order, it is basically going to put this below the current cell. So this is how the shortcut would work. And as I told you, to delete this, I have to just double tap D key. And the next one would be, now as we have created a cell, on the top of the current cell, we have created a cell below the current cell, and we have also deleted the cell. Now how do I copy one cell and paste it to the other one? So for example, right now I have clicked it and it is in the edit mode. We are going to basically go to the command mode by pressing escape, and now all you have to do is press C and go to any other cell and press V. There you go. You can create as many copies as you want and it will create. So by double tapping D from the command mode, you can pretty much kill each cell. Now if you want to cut this cell, you can pretty much press X in the command mode and go down anywhere you want and just press V for it to paste. Similar, all it is going to do is cut the cell from the origin and then paste it wherever you want. Now just let me delete the cells above. So these shortcuts can be used very quickly to write down documents, to edit your code also. Now these are the shortcuts. Now for example, said I just want to, for example, we are running a for loop and you just want the interpreter to start. For example, let me just do this. Let me add cells below and let me just write down some random code that we are going to execute. For example, let me just make a list. I'll just assign a list of, let's say this list has integers. So let's say we are going to assign 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then we are going to basically access the list. Although don't use the term list, because as you can see it is in some different color. So please, because it's a default casting that is used to convert something to a list. So we are going to use list and we are going to call something of the index 0, and as you all know, you're going to end up in an error because we are calling list 1 is not defined because we didn't execute this cell. Well, executing is equally important. We have to execute each and every cell to get an output. So now let us do one thing. For example, I just want to restart the interpreter. So all I have to do is press Ctrl Shift and P, and then you will basically open up the command palette. So basically the command palette has all the functions. All you have to do is just type over it. For example, I want to just delete the current cell. So for me to delete the cell, I have to just press this and it is going to delete that cell. So it's like you can do anything. I want to insert a cell above it. There you go. So this is something you can use as an assistant for yourself. So if you are not very familiar with the commands, you can use that too. I'm writing a very big code right now, and I don't know which line number it is going to be. To basically add a line number to any cell, all you have to do is go into the command mode and press L. The moment you press L, now if you can see, we have all the lines coming up in the cell. Well, that is great, right? If you want, you can even close them by pressing L again. So oops, I was in the edit mode. So first we have to press escape, see whether there's a blue line on the left side, and then press L. It's gone again. So this is how basically things are going to work. So now the next thing we have to know is, so right now let's get started with the interrupt mode. So basically why should we interrupt the kernel, right? We all interrupt the kernel because, for example, there is a for loop and it is pretty much not giving an output, and your kernel is busy working over it, and you want the kernel to be like, hey, stop, I don't want you to work over it. We basically we go to the command mode by pressing escape. So as you can see, our cell has turned blue and we have to double tap the I key, and then you will basically interrupt the kernel and your for loop execution will stop. Yes, it basically stops your for loop execution. And now, for example, let me just write down a piece of code. So right now we are just making a list of variables. So let me just index this list. Let me just tap. So you can press Shift and Tab to basically get a recommendation of whatever the stuff is being there. For example, it is telling me there is license and there is a list and there is list 1. So in the previous stuff we have also kept a list, so that is visible, but you can press Shift and Tab and get the output of it. So we'll just press list 1 and that will be, and just assign a square bracket to it, mention the index, and we should be able to get 1. So now you can see we have 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4 as an output, in and out. So basically now you guys must be asking me why do we have this to having 2 times there. So basically the second out is the output of the in2. So basically your in and out is basically the out is the output, and in is the input that you have given. So you can see we have the execution. For example, from where did I start? I can pretty much know that by seeing that IN1. So this is where we started and this is where we have ended with an output of 1. So for example, I have written a code of like 100 lines and I don't even know from where did we start at all. And I just want it to start from again, basically from 0, 1, 2, 3, because if I re-execute this right now, you can see these numbers, they keep on extending, they don't stop. So for us to get back to 0, you have to first interrupt the kernel and then we can basically restart the kernel, or you can do something known as a restart, a direct restart. So there are two ways of doing a restart. So first is by pressing Ctrl+Shift+T and you can search for something known as a restart. So we have confirm restart command and you have to press enter, and now if you see, we are going to start again by 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So now the other way of doing this is by basically using the shortcut key. So you have to first get out of your edit mode and then go to a command mode, and now all you have to do is press 0 key twice. It's going to ask you the same thing. If you want to restart the kernel, hit enter and you are basically restarted the kernel and it is ready to perform the task again. So now we press shift, it is going to basically start again by 1, 2, 3, 4 and the level of execution that you want. That is how you can interrupt a kernel. Now coming to the next part, well, Python codes can be written on this. That is something, it was meant to do for. But what about the markups and markdowns? How can you beautify this amazing code, right? Well, Jupyter Notebook also has a thing for it. Let me just show you. For example, I want to give a heading for this list. Now, I just want to give a heading. For example, if I just type heading, if I'm going to execute this, I'm going to get an error. But the reason why is it is still thinking that heading is a Python code and the heading is not at all assigned. It is not defined to anything. But we all know that this is a heading, it is just a text, it has nothing to do with Python. So to first do that, all you have to do is go to your command mode by pressing escape and just press M. What will M do? When you press M in the command mode, this will basically convert this cell from a basic code to a markdown. Yes. Now if you just try to execute this, it will come down as a normal heading. So said I want this heading to be in a very large size. So let's do that too. For that, I guess I have to reference something because I have already written all the markup types. So here they are, and you can see all of these markup types are available here. So let's do so what happens is Jupyter supports markdown as well as markups. Markdowns are the basic symbols that help Jupyter to understand that this is a markdown and what that symbol is meant for. Whereas in the markup, there's basically the HTML. So Jupyter Notebook basically accepts an HTML format also. So that is called as a markup. And if you are basically using a special symbol from the inbuilt, Jupyter Notebook to basically tell it whether it's a heading or whether it's a table or whatever it is, then that is your markdown. So what you're going to do is I'm going to show you some headings. So this is the markdown. So as you can see, you have heading here, and there's also a shortcut for the markdown heading that I personally use a lot, and you can pretty much use it like this. For example, you have to go to your command mode first by pressing escape. If you are in your editing mode, if you can see a cursor blinking and it is green in color, it is practically telling you that it's in an editing mode. And now you have to just click escape and you will be out from it. Now all you have to do is press 1 and now press shift enter, or if you want, we can also press Ctrl and enter, and you can see that this is an heading. Although if you want a smaller heading, you can press 2 and this basically gets small, right? Similarly, you can pretty much go to your command mode and type 3, 4, 5 and 6 is the max it supports. So 1 to 6 in the command mode can pretty much get you heading, from really big to really small with an italics to it. Although you could do the same thing by using an HTML tag. These were all markdowns that I showed you. Now we are going to use the markups. So in markups, if you guys are really familiar with the HTML format, the format would pretty much tell you that we are going to use an h1 tag here. So if you type down an h1 tag, You can see that we, for example, let me just type heading inside the h1 tag, and if you press Ctrl and enter, it is still going to be an heading. But can you just see the difference that whenever you type a markup language heading, as well as if you see a markdown language heading, it is very different. For example, if you can see, there are major spaces. These are basically written in the markup language, and you can see they have humongous space with them. There's a lot of spacing between each and every word, if you can see. Yeah, this spacing is something, you know, I pretty much use. So I personally love using the markup than the markdown language, but there are times that I also use the headings from the markdown because it is just more easier to access, and it wouldn't require, if you guys are not familiar with the HTML language, you can pretty much use the markdown language that is there from the Jupyter Notebook, although it is very restricted to only performing some tasks. For example, your headers, I don't think there are a lot of things supported by the markdown language, but the basic necessity stuff is all done by the markdown tags. So the heading, as you can see, one thing that the markdown cannot do is, for example, I just want this heading to be in the center, so all I have to do is type an align tag, and I can get the heading in the middle. You can't do this with the markdown language. With markdown doesn't allow you to get the heading to basic middle of the part. So the markdown doesn't allow you to get the heading to the middle. You can do a lot of stuff if you're using an HTML tag than a markdown tag. So the HTML tag also allows you to color. For example, I can pretty much give a color to this. This should be a style tag. So it would just take a moment for me to convert this to a style tag. And you can see that this is an heading. So you can do a lot of stuff with this. That is why for giving a heading, I would personally use a markup tag than a markdown tag, but it is up to another's flavor. Okay. Next thing would be using this. So basically you can use a block quote or you can use this. So the block quotes, they practically, they are just things that you want to point out. For example, I would use them as, you know, okay, just press shift and then the right arrow, and if you can type anything. For example, let me just type THIS this, and if I just execute this, I will have a basic bar on the left and this. Well, you can also use something known as a block quote. So let me just copy the block quotes so that I can save some time on this tutorial, and I will use a slash back block quote. So if you are very familiar with your HTML stuff, then this should be a piece of cake for you. We had a markup, we had a markdown also. The next thing you want to see would be this. So your code can be also depicted. For example, I want to show some code and I don't want to execute it, I just want to show it that I have referred it from some other code. I can use this. So we'll basically use two tildes. So if you know what tilde is, if you have an escape key, just below your escape key there is a tilde key, and I just don't have any other word to call this. So use that, and I will just type down x is equal to some string, let's say hello, and this is the code. Yes, so any other person seeing this can understand that this is a code. Yeah. And in the markup language, you can pretty much use the code definition. For example, let me just copy this and I'll place this just to save time again, and I will just type down the same thing, x is equal to hello, and it will also do the same thing. Next we are going to represent is how you can show a string basically in the markup language as well as the markdown language. So this pretty much, as you have seen above, this will be represented in the same way, although we have to use 3 tildes instead of 1 to basically represent multiple lines of thing. So let me just copy this whole code and show you how it looks up here. So if you type tilde key 3 times and you type Python, and if you try to execute this, this will look something like this. Although this is not a real-time executed code, this is just a decoration to show someone that I have used this specific code. Although this looks very convincing, I would pretty much use this. So this is the markdown language and this is the markup code. So as you have seen in the code, in the HTML tags have always an advantage over the markdown tags because they they basically, you can use the same code for the Python for a single line as well as for the multiple line. Next thing would be how you can break a line. So if you see in Python, to break this line, we don't have a markdown code. All we have is as a markup. So let me just show you how you can break a line. For example, let me say this tutorial is amazing, I love it. Well, if you just press Control and enter, it's gonna execute it. But I want this tutorial is, and then the amazing I love to be just below that. So for that, all you have to do is go to your editing mode by clicking on it by pressing enter, and then after is we are going to use the lesser arrow and the greater arrow, and then we are going to write down BR. So basically this is going to break from before the amazing and after the is. So basically it's going to break this and get it down below like this. So if I press Control and enter, you can see this is a tutorial, I love it, and yeah, definitely, why won't you? So next one, we are going to go to the bold text, and the bold text, it will basically have a markup, that is your B tag. So basically to show this here, I would just type greater than, lesser than tag, and I would pretty much replicate this tag with a slash so that it ends it. Add a slash before B and type down your word that you need. For example, I just type code and press Control and enter, and basically this gets the thing to bold up. So basically it converts your text from the normal text to the bold text. Next, so now we're going to see the italic text. So for the italic text, all we have to go here and check the italic tag. So for italic tag, we have the markup, and that is the I tag. So less than and greater than I, and then we're going to copy this, paste it here, and then press slash. So now you can see if you type anything here, like for example, let me just say hi, and I press enter, the hi is a bit tilted. So basically it tilts your text, whatever you give, and it basically makes it italic. So this is how you can show a italic tag on your Jupyter Notebook. The next one would be showing down the ordered list. So the ordered list here, it comes basically from their HTML. So if you can see, you have the OL tags and the LI tags for list. So let me just copy all of this, because if I start typing all of this, it will take a lot of time for me to show you. But if you type this, you need an OL tag and an OL closing tag. You need LI tags and LI closing tags. So basically your LI tags will contain the list, okay, and your OL tags will tell that these lists are ordered. So for example, the first LI tag will have a letter 1, the second LI tag will have a letter 2, and so on. Like you can go up to infinite. So when I execute this, I will have 1 fish, 2 eggs, 3 cheese. And if you want, you can even edit this. For example, I will say I want one chicken, and it will convert that to chicken. So this is how you can show an ordered list. The next one would be the unordered list. So your unordered list basically has dots. It doesn't have numeric values. It is the same thing. But here the major difference that you would see would be basically your tag difference. That is, your OL tag will not be used. You will be using your UL tag. So same thing. If I want, I can change this to anything. For example, I want peas, and press enter, and it would pretty much show you that I want peas and cheese. So basically you don't have numbers, but you will always have a dot that basically doesn't tell which one comes first or second, but these are the things that should be brought. So the ordered list would tell you the priority of a stuff, but the unordered list would just tell you that this stuff is required and this is all listed on it. Now this is how you can show your ordered list and the unordered list. So the next thing we'll be covering up is the link. So you guys must be wondering from where people are showing down links, and the moment you click them, you can go up to any place and they can pretty much target you or maybe redirect you to any other site. Well, for that we have a markup language, and we use the A tag. For example, if I want you to redirect all of you guys to the Google site, I would just have to use the A tag, the enclosing A tag, give an href, the target site I want you to go in, and you can pretty much click here. For example, the link to Google, this would be highlighted in the blue manner. So let me just execute this cell, and now if I click on link to Google, it will take me to Google. Yes, if you can see, I'm redirected to Google. So for example, if the person who's reading your document, you want to redirect them to some other site, for example, wherever you have referenced that thing, well, you can use that. You can use the link to its advantage on the document and let the reader know, where you have brought in the stuff from. The next thing that we would practically cover up would be tables. So yes, you can use the HTML tables here also. Well, this is a very huge tag, but I will break it down for you so that you guys know. Even if you guys are not familiar with HTML, it is very, very easy if you know what is happening. So every tag has as a tag name and a closing tag. You can see we are starting a table, we have a closing tag for a table, and we have the TR is a table row tag. So we can see we have a TR tag, table row tag. So basically it tells that this whole thing is one row, and you have the table header. So the table headers, this whole row is a table header row here. So you have three table headers, that is name, section and marks, and you have the table header tag and the enclosing tag with them. The next one is your table row. This is another row after the header row. So after the header row, you have your data row. So your data row will be the table data, and this data row would come down of the header. For example, under the name tag you would have Hannah, under the section tag you would have Brisbane, and under the marks tag you will have 4000. So basically, similarly, you can have n number of TD tags with TR tags, n number of TR tags, and each and every TR tag you can have n number of TD tags. So every TR tag is a row, and every TD tag is the data in that specific row. So the more the TD tags in that TR tag, it basically tells the more columns are there. So for example, if I have 3 header tags, then I will only have 3 TD tags and 3 TD tags below that. If I add another one, it would pretty much disturb the table. Well, to see in this how it executes, let me just press Control and enter, and you can see it just shows the name of the person, who that person is, section, and the marks of that. Well, this is a very short representative of a table, but the tables can be really huge. You also, if I have not given the style to this, the table would be really huge. So for all of us to see the table in a proper size, you have to use something known as a style tag, and you have to give the height and width of that specific table. Well, I have made it 20% because I just wanted to show it that much, but you guys can use it up to 50%, 60%, even the 100% of it. Now, getting to the next thing would be your image. So how can you show an image in Jupyter Notebook? So basically, to show an image, you have to know there's something known as an image tag. So an image tag basically helps you to show an image. So in an image tag, you would have 3 things. You would have the source of that information, the width of that thing, and the height of that thing. The width and height is a very mandatory required thing, because if you don't give that, the whole source of that image would end up taking up the whole page. Yes, the whole page. So by default, if you don't give the width and the height of the image will end up taking up the whole width of it. And by taking up the whole width, let me just show you what it looks like. For example, if this is this small, let me press escape and add another cell below it. So I'll press B, and there goes another cell. I'll just press M to convert this to a markup language. And yeah, if you guys are wondering how do you convert markdown tags back to the code tag, all you have to do is press escape, go to your command mode, and then press Y key, and this will convert it back to the code mode. So when you press M, it converts it to the markdown mode, and if you press Y, it converts it to the code mode. So right now we need the markdown mode, so we'll just press the markdown mode, and I will copy a code from what I have, this image here. So I already have it, and if I paste this here, and if I don't give the height and the width of this specific image, it's basically a smiley that I found it on net, and it was surprising that this thing has a humongous area, the way it captures the area. So now I'm gonna press Control and enter. So you can see this thing would happen. It would practically end up taking the whole page. You don't want the person who's reviewing a document to see this whole big image. So to avoid that, we pretty much give the style of height and width. So now if you press enter an image, Now if you press Ctrl and enter, you can pretty much see that we have the smiley here. Basically, to control the height and the width of your image source, we have to pretty much use this. Now coming down to another one, you guys must be knowing exclamation. So why Upzid? What is the difference between typing down exclamation? So firstly, we have to convert this markdown tag to the basic code tag, and for that you're going to press escape, which will make it turn into blue, and then that tells us that this is in the command mode. And now we're going to press Y for it to convert it to the code mode so that we can type in Python into it. And yeah, so exclamation, what does exclamation do? So basically exclamation, it allows you to run the command prompt. Yes guys, so if you have seen, we have this command, legacy command. This legacy command can be accessed by your Jupyter Notebook also. So basically you can run the same commands that you have run here in your terminal on your Jupyter Notebooks. For example, I just want to see what dir it is, and if I press this, it will basically tell me what dir am I in. Isn't this surprising that you can run a terminal on your Python code? Well, it is very important. For example, if you want to show someone that how you have installed some package, onto your Python code using pip command, you can pretty much type your pip command here and let them know what you have installed. Now this is very helpful. It is also known as a magic command. Well, Jupyter Notebook is full of surprises. We have something more than this. For example, let me just type another command, the host name. If I type this, I'm going to get my desktop host name. So these commands are pretty much the legacy commands, and you can use any command you want. You can even do a pip install, you can run Python, you can do everything with this terminal. So yeah, it basically enables you to run the commands that you could run in your terminal, but you just run it here itself. Well, the next thing would be your ls magic. So what is an ls magic? So for us to know what an ls magic is, just type percentile and lsmagic. So the moment you type in and press enter, it is going to tell you what it is. So we have two things in ls magic. So this is a very special property of the Jupyter Notebook. It has two things. You have a single percentile and you have a double percentile. For example, the single percentile, it allows you to do a cd to clear, basically do all the commands that you could do in your system or the terminal, and have them done here. But the double percentage ones, for example, let me just do let me just echo percentile echo hello. Oops, this was a markdown. Well, let's convert this to a code and let's just run this. So if you can see, if I type echo hello, it is going to echo the hello to me. Well, this is something that you would all do it in a command prompt, but you can also do that in Jupyter Notebook. Now coming down to the double quotes, why do we have double quotes? Well, for example, if I want to render double quote, if you can see, it is all the magics are available here. You can pretty much write down a bash line command. You can write down an HTML, you can write down an SVG, you can use a bash command too, you can use capture, debugging, CMD, and HTML, JavaScript. It basically allows you to run other languages also. So you can pretty much run a Python 2 on this and a Python 3. For example, if your code just supports the legacy Python 2, you can use this magic command and then type down your Python 2 code and it would still run it. For example, let us use something known as timeit. So this is, if you have ever used it in your Python library, it basically tells you how much time that this specific command took. For example, let me just assign, let me just say we are going to use, we're going to say hello world, and we are going to use the indexing here. So I'm going to use the index known as from index, let's say what's there in index 0, and I want the output of this. So the moment I run this, it basically tells me how much time did it take for me to run this. So if you want to know how much of time that your code has taken for it to run, you can use the timeit command. Now for example, I want to basically write down my code in HTML. So we can also use that by using something known as the HTML tag. So I'm going to type HTML, and now I'm going to type, you know, the basic body tag, the HTML tag first, and close the HTML tag. And I'm going to pretty much write down a body tag here. And we're going to give a header. So I'm going to give a header like h1, and I'm going to type this down, and let's say hello, and I'm going to run this. So basically it is going to render the hello HTML tag. Also, you can also use something known as a paragraph tag here. So we are going to use a paragraph, and I'm going to write a So as you can see, it pretty much is able to render the code. This is basically an HTML code. So you can pretty much tell it by the magic command to use it. And if you have not known how famous this magic command is, let me just show you guys one thing. So if you guys have ever seen, we are using one of those magic commands. So I'm going to show you one more example where we use these magic codes, especially the ls magic codes. So this, if you are very familiar with this code, this is a matplotlib inline code. So this inline code tells that you can basically give properties and to show the graph output to it. Well, I already have a code of this, and I'm just going to copy this code, and I'm going to show you guys how the output would look. You can pretty much show an output of any graph. So I'm going to type this code here, and now we're going to execute this code. So basically this code is trying to call matplotlib, and in the matplotlib library you have the pyplot. So we're going to take this pyplot, and we're going to give an aliases as plt, so that we can call anything as plt and it would refer it as pyplot. Now you're going to give your x variables as a list, y variables as a list. Make sure that the indexes are the same. For example, if it is 0 1 2 3 4, it is 0 1 2 3 and 4 here. The next thing is we are going to press plt bar. So we're going to call a bar class from the bar method from the plt plot, and you're going to use the show method. So the moment you press control and enter, you will have the bar plot. So it is very important that, you know, the Jupyter basically enables us to show the real-time response of any Python code. Well, most of the interpreters, they take time, they either have a separate response screen, or they have an overlay, or you have some of the other representation problem with them. Either when it comes to this when it comes to a standpoint of showing representing any information, for example your code, the documentation of your code, it is not so easy to show it on that. But here it just gets easy. Now for example, I have another code to show you guys. So this another code that I have, it practically shows you that we can also use something known as the tables. So I'm just going to add 2 more cells below, and I'm going to paste this code. So what it does, that you can pretty much take a CSV in your current directory. So as I've told you guys, the current directory that we are in, it has a CSV file. So you can see we have a housing CSV in our current directory. All you have to do is give the directory. So because we're in the current directory, so it's our home directory, so all you have to do is give the variable name. You have to call import pandas and give it a aliases as pd, and we are going to call this as nyc data, and we are going to call pd.read csv method from that, and it is going to pretty much go to your housing.csv and read that file. Then we are going to type nyc data to represent that. The moment you press Ctrl and enter, it is going to show you the whole directory and whatever it has. So you can see this directly enables us to see the values inside it. And the best part is you can see this in the form of a table. Most of the IDEs, they fail to represent this in the form of a table, but it is a very easy game for the Jupyter Notebook to show anything other than table. You can show videos, you can show images, you can show tables, you can show bar graphs, you can show all sort of stuff in it. and the Jupyter Notebook will not let you down. So in this Python video, you have learned how you could use shortcuts to your advantage. You can use the LS Magic tool, you can use the markups and markdown languages to basically represent your code. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe and share it to your friends, and just let them know that there is a channel that helps people learn this. In the next video, we'll be covering up the variables and the data types in Python. Until then, see you guys.